our IASN YouTube channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest tutorials. In today's videos, we'll be covering an existing and important topics, that is Spring Boot basics. Let's see why Spring Boot, what are the advantages which is present on the Spring Boot. Here are the list of advantages which is present on the Spring Boot. The first one is going to be a simplified configuration, and second one is going to be rapid application development, and third one is going to be a microservices architecture, and fourth one is going to be a built-in features for production readiness. Let's see what is a simplified configurations is all about. Spring Boot reduces the complexity of configurations and application by providing auto configurations. Spring Boot reduces the need for complex configuration file like XML and make the setup process much easier. And moving to this next advantages, that is rapid application development. Spring Boot offers the features like embedded server, that is Tomcat and Jetty, and started dependencies which automatically bring in necessary libraries, and auto configuration, allowing the developers to focus more on business logic rather than setup and configurations. And moving to this next advantages, which is microservices architecture. Spring Boot is well suited for building microservices architecture, which are small and independently deployable services that perform the specific functions. Spring Boot simplifies the development of microservices by offering features like embedded servers, lightweight configuration, and easy integrations with Spring Cloud. And moving to this next advantages, which is built-in features for production readiness. In Spring Boot includes a set of features especially for designed to help applications be production readiness. And these features often provided through a Spring Boot actuator, including health check, metrics, and application monitoring, logging, and Spring Boot configuration. Hope you understand what is the advantages which is present on the Spring Boot application. Then moving to this general flow of applications where we are using the Spring Boot in the web applications. Here you see the application is categorized into three layers. One is front end, another one is logical, another one is database. In front end, so we are going to perform the login operations. In login operations, we are going to give the username and password, and then we are going to click the login button, so that the Spring Boot is going to the Angular is going to call the Spring Boot application. It's going to call the class which is used to perform the login operations. So that Spring Boot classes is going to check whether the user given details, that is username and password, is valid or not by checking on the database. Once it is a valid username and password, it is going to taken to the dashboard page. That Spring Boot inform that the user is a valid user, so that this information is going to pass to the Angular. Angular will take the user to the dashboard page. So then we are going to see the searching operation. In searching operations, we are going to see this one, right? Okay, so we are going to give the product name and we are going to click the search button. Once we given the product name and we are going to click the search button, is taken to the Spring Boot applications. In Spring Boot application, we are having the class called search class. So this search class will contains the logic relevant to the searching the details on the database. So it's taken the values which is given on the user in the front end, that is an Angular. Here you see the user is given the Samsung. So this information is taken to the Spring Boot classes. So it's going, this search class will contains the logic code which is relevant to searching the details on the database. Once it finds the relevant data on the database, is going to pull those information and it is going to return the data in the JSON format. So now we are going to display this informations on the Angular like this. So now you understand where we are using the Spring Boot in general applications. So now we are moving to this. What are the annotation, basic annotations which is present on the Spring Boot? So here we are having that this three basic annotations. There is a lot of annotations which is there. Okay, we are going to see one by one. Okay, so here these are the basic annotations which we are using in Spring Boot application. That is, the first one is REST controller. What is REST controller? This REST controller is combinations of controller and response body. What it is mean? In Spring Boot, REST controller annotation is used to define a RESTful web services controller. Its specializations of a controller annotations designed for handling HTTP requests in RESTful API and returning the data in the form of JSON and XML rather than Vue HTML. Okay, so here you see when we are returning the values in the JSON format. Okay, so hope you understand where we are using the REST controller. And this annotations combines both at controller and response body. It simplifies the creations of RESTful API by automatically converting Java objects into the appropriate HTTP response format. And then next one, it eliminates the need for response body on individual method as REST controller automatically applies the behaviors to all the method which is present on the particular class. Okay, so hope you understand. Here you see we are going to return the data in the JSON format. Okay, so for that purpose mainly we are using at REST controller. So once you apply the REST controller onto the particular class, this is applied to all the method which is present inside this particular classes. So it automatically converting Java object into the HTTP response body in the format of JSON. Then moving to this next one, we are going to see what is request mapping. The request mapping annotations in the Spring Boot is used to map the HTTP request to handle the methods of REST controller. It allows the developer to specify the URL patterns for the methods or classes. It can be used on both controller, it can be used both on the controller as well as the methods, making it useful for defining the common URL mapping for multiple methods in the controller. So we are going to see where we are using on the Spring Boot in detail in the upcoming slides. Then moving to this, what is AutoWire? AutoWire annotations in the Spring Boot is used for automatic dependency injection. So it allows a Spring Boot to automatically inject the required dependencies into the classes at runtime without need for manual configuration. So we are going to see all these annotations in details. Now, where we are using these annotations on this general application flow. So as you see, with these diagrams, we already discussed that here in the front end, the user is going to give the username and password and the user is going to click the login button. So now this information is taken from the front end to the back end. In the back end, we are having the Spring Boot, right? In the Spring Boot, we are having the different classes. Okay, so each classes should be annotated with at REST controller to handle or returning the JSON data. And then we are going to see what is request mapping. As we already discussed, what is a request mapping? It is endpoint we are going to give it for each classes or methods. So here, when the user is going to give the username and password and click the login button, it transfers those informations to this particular classes. That classes should be annotated with at request controller. To make an endpoint to this particular class, we are going to use at request mapping. So it is going to call /login to perform login operations. Once it's going to retrieve the data, it's going to check whether the user is a valid user on the database. Is going to return the is in case if it credential is present on the database, it's giving the informations to the Angular that the user is a valid user. Then moving to the searching operations. In searching operations, we are going to give the product name and we are going to click the search button. It's taken this information from Angular to the Spring Boot. In here, we are having the different types of classes. Each classes should be annotated with a REST controller. So here we are having the search classes. That class is also annotated with a REST controller. So to make an endpoint to this particular class, so we are going to annotate this class with at request mapping. We can use the request mapping for classes as well as for the method is going to check the informations on the database whether is any data is present on the database which is relevant to the Samsung. Once it finds the relevant informations on the database, is going to return the data in the JSON format because we are annotated this class with at REST controller. So it's going to return the data in the JSON format. This information will be given to the Angular. Here we are going to display the informations like this in the Angular application. Hope you understands what is REST controller, what is request mapping. Let's move to this implementations of this concept in the Spring Boot applications. For that, I'm going to use a Spring Initializer for creating an applications. So I'm moving to the Spring Initializer website. Here, I'm going to choose project type as Momin. Language which I'm going to use is Java. Here, we are going to give the group information. That is, so each project's having the domain name, right? Okay, so we are going to give the domain name in ultra manner. For example, www.amazon.com, that is means, okay, so we are going to give domain name in ultra order, com.amazon. Likewise, to identify uniqueness. Okay, so com.iasn. Okay, so then I'm just going to use the project name as sample and I'm going to choose version is 21. Dependencies. Okay, to perform any operations like in previously we are using the JDBC operation, right? Okay, so JDBC operation if you are going to perform means you need to download the jar file and we need to add the jar file into our application. But here we don't want to download any jar file. Just we are mentioning what dependencies is required to develop and Spring Boot applications. Okay, so it automatically inject the jar file and it is added to our application. So for performing the basic Spring Boot applications concepts, we need Spring Web. Another one is Spring Dev Tool. Spring Dev Tool. I'm just going to add these two dependencies and I'm going to click the generate button. Once it get downloaded, we are going to extract it. Okay, so now it says get extracted. I'm going to use the IntelliJ IDE for developing an application. So now I'm going to open this applications on the IntelliJ. Now it's loading the dependencies, all the dependencies which we added while we are creating an applications. I hope all the dependencies is added to our application. So we can check all this informations on the external libraries. Now we are moving to this source file. So we are going to create three things. One is controller and services and repositories. For that, I'm just going to explain these are the flows we are going to use on the Spring Boot application. First, we are having the controller and that should be followed by repositories and then repository is going to communicate with the databases. So here first, this controller should be annotated with at rest controller, and services class should be annotated with at services, and then repository class should be annotated with at repositories. These are the general flow. First, we are going to create a controller for packages, then services packages. As of now, we are not going to communicate with the database. Just we are going to insert the data into the collections and we are going to perform the retrieval operation. For that, we need only two layers. One is controller, another one is services. So I'm going to create two packages. One is controller. Another one is services. Right. Okay, so inside this controller, I'm going to create one simple class which is sample controller. So as I already told that, so each classes should be annotated with at rest controller. Okay. So on to make it endpoint for this particular classes, I'm just going to use request mapping. Okay. So here I'm just going to use demo. Okay. So now inside this, I'm just going to uh, create one method. So so when the user is going to call this particular method, okay, so it's going to display the information. Okay, so for that we need to know little bit another type another annotations also. So that is yes, that is post mapping, get mapping, delete mapping, and put mapping. So, so what is post mapping? What is get mapping? What is delete mapping and put mapping? Let's see. In front end, when we are going to perform the insert operation, that is where we are going to use the insert operations, like when we are doing the registration operations, when you are adding the product to your cart. Okay, so these all comes under the insert operation. For performing the insert operation, we need to use post mapping annotations. We need to use the post mapping annotations. Okay, so performing the insert operations into the database. So then the next one, we are going to use the retrieve data. Okay, so for example, when you're going to type the product on the Amazon website, so that you required Amazon in the Amazon website, you want to purchase some mobile phones. Okay, so you're going to type mobile and click the search button. Okay, so for that, so for searching based or retrieval based operations, you can use the get mapping. Get mapping, what it is going to do is just going to retrieve the informations from the database. For deleting any records, you can use at delete mapping. This delete mapping annotation is used to delete the data in the database table. And put update mapping, update. Okay, so for performing the update operation, you can use put mapping annotation. What this put mapping annotation is going to do is just going to update the informations in the database. Then we are going to see one more annotation, that is patch mapping. It is used for performing the partial update on the resources. Okay, so instead of updating the complete record, you can use patch mapping for partial update. So hope you understand where we are using this put, post and get mapping. Here you see, this is what the detailed descriptions about get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, and delete mapping. Handles a HTTP GET request to retrieve the data from the server, and post mapping handles HTTP post request to create a new resources, and put mapping is used for full update of your resources, and delete mapping handle HTTP delete request to delete resources. So hope you understand where we are where you need to use a put, get, and post delete mapping. Okay, so now we are just going to display the informations. For that I'm just using delete mapping, sorry, get mapping. In double quotes I'm just going to give slash. Okay, so now I'm just going to create a method. So it's public string get info. The method name is get info. So here I'm just going to return hi, welcome to ISN YouTube channel. Okay, so now you see, to make a call to this particular method, first we need to make a call to this particular class. So this class should be annotated with demo, and that should be followed by, we are using the get mapping. In get mapping, if you not give anything means, okay, so it will be take it as empty, so that only if you're going to give demo, and then is going to return this particular method, what it is written inside this particular method. In case if you want give any naming convention for this particular HTTP endpoint, you can give it like this, get. Okay, so now if you want to make a call to this particular method, you need to use demo slash get, so that this particular method is going to be get called. So normally in Java, how we are going to call the particular method? First, we need to create an object from this classes like this. Okay, so class name. Okay, so Sam equal to new and then sample controller, and then we are going to call Sam dot. So method name is get info. Okay, so like this method, like this only we are going to call this particular method to perform the execution. But so this is going to be simplified in the Java. We don't want to write the method like this. Okay, so we are just going to annotate this class with attached controller. To make a call to this particular method, we are going to use demo slash get, so that this particular method is going to be get triggered and we are going to get the output. Now, you see, we are going to call this particular method, so that first we need to call the demo and then slash get. Okay, I'm just going to save this class and I'm going to run this program now. Okay, so now you see Tomcat is running on port 8080. I'm just going to open the browser. I'm just going to type localhost colon 8080 slash. What is the main endpoint for this particular class? The main endpoint for this particular class is demo. Okay, so demo. And then to make a call to this particular method, we are going to use get slash get and press enter. Now you see we got the output. Hi, welcome to IASN YouTube channel. Now I want to pass the information along with the URL. Okay, so how to pass the informations along with the URL? Okay, so we are going to use the same get mapping. Okay, so I'm just going to use the same get mapping over here. Get mapping, and then I'm just going to use slash get info. I can use the get itself, and I'm going to use a flower bracket. Inside this, I'm just going to create one variable that is name. Okay, so now I'm just going to create a method. This method is going to simply return hi, welcome to IASN YouTube channel, and that should be followed by name which we pass on the URL endpoint. Okay, so for that I'm just going to create public string and then get detailed info. Okay, so this is the method name. Okay, so here I'm just going to write return statement which we already used on the previous method. Okay, so now you see we need to read the values which is present on the URL. To read the values which is present on the URL, we are going to use which method? We are going to use at path variable annotation. At path variable annotation. That should be followed by. So this variable is going to be which data type? It is going to be a string. Okay, so we need to use the same name on here. Okay, so I'm just going to use string name. So now you see we are pull the values which is present on the URL to this particular method. Now we need to use this value into inside our particular method, so that I'm just going to use plus name. Okay, so now you see we are going to read on this applications. Now we are going to pass demo slash get, that should be followed by we are going to pass some name. Okay, so that name will be going to display it on here. Okay, so now I'm just going to rerun this application. Okay, so now I'm going to open it on the browser. Now here you see along with this particular URL, that is demo slash get, we need to pass some values on here. Okay, so demo slash get slash Vinod Kumar Selva Arasan, and just press enter. Now you see the values which you passed on the URL, it's readed by this method. Okay, so and it is displaying the informations on here. So now in case if you want to pass any other informations after the get, that value will be pulled and it is going to display it on the Ashok Kumar. Okay, so hi, welcome to ISN YouTube channel by Ashok Kumar. Now you know how to read the values from the URL. So this is what the get mapping is all about. Here you understand about how to use where you need to use a REST controller. What is the use of what is the use of REST request mapping? What is the use of get mapping? And what is the use of get mapping? Along with that, we are passing the values from the URL in the URL. Okay, so now you understand the basic flow of how it is working, right? Okay, so now we are moving to this simple CRUD operations by using collections. Okay, so simple by using a primitive data type. For that, I'm just going to create a services classes. Service class. Okay, so I'm just going to give sample service. Okay, so now this classes should be annotated with at services. Here, I'm just going to create one array list of primitive data type. I'm just going to add those value into the collections and we are going to perform some adding and deleting operations. Okay, so list string and I'm going to create a object for this list new array list Okay, okay. So now we are going to import this. Okay, so now I need to create the one method. This method is going to add the information. Now this method is used to add the information. Now how to do it? Okay, so I'm just going to create one method. So this method is going to be a type of public access specifier. Public access specifier is going to return the string. So here I'm going to use student. Add student. Okay, so this method is going to return some values. Now we need to add the values in the collection means which method we are going to use. We are going to use list method, right? Okay, so we are going to use the list method. Sorry, we are going to inject the dependencies of array list. So which method is used to add the values into the array list? Add method, right? Okay, so now you see we are going to use the add method. Now we need to pass the values to this add method. So what is the flow? Generally, the flow is going to be a first controller and then services and repository. This controller is used for writing an endpoint. This services is used for writing the logics. So here you see we are going to write the logics, that is adding the data into the array list. So for that, I'm just going to, for adding the data into the anything, it may be a collections or database, we need to use which annotation? We need to use post mapping. Okay, so here inside this post mapping, so I'm just going to use slash mm, add student. Okay, so here I'm just going to pass the information. Okay, so that is inside this URL mapping and I'm going to pass the variable name as name. Okay, so variable name as name. So now I'm just going to read the information. Okay, so now I'm just going to read the information which is present on the URL. We need to pull the name, right? Okay, so for that I'm just going to use list, public access specifier string data type and I'm going to mm, call and I'm going to create a method as add student. Okay, so add student. So now we need to pull the values which is present on the URL. Okay, so which annotation we need to use it on here? We need to use path mapping. We need to use path variable, right? Okay, so that should be followed by which data type the value name is string, right? Okay, so then I'm going to use same variable which is mentioned on here, now we are getting this value, right? Okay, so now we need to call the method which is present on the services to add those information. For that, we need to make a call to this particular method. We need to inject this services class into the controller. Okay, so normally in generally Java, in case if this method is present on one classes, if you want to access this method on the another classes, what you're going to do? You are just going to create an object of this particular class on the sample controller. By using the object, you are going to access this method. But as we already discussed about auto-add annotation, it is just going to inject the dependencies. That is a bean. Okay, so I'm just going to use auto-add on here. Okay, so auto-add on here. So that should be followed by the class name, sample services. This services class should be annotated with add service annotation. Okay, so sample services, and then I'm just going to import this classes. Now you see this auto add annotation inject this particular class. Okay, so that by using this dependency injection object, we can able to call or access all the method which is present on this particular class. So now this add student need to receive the values which we pass from here, right? Okay, so here I'm going to pass name. Okay, so we are going to write logic inside the services class. So the values which we pass from the controller to the services, that value we are going to pass it to this add students method which is present on the services class. Now you see we got the values n. So now we are going to add the values n, and then we are going to just return it. Okay, so what this add method is going to do? So it's just going to add the values into the array list. Okay, so now you see we are going to return the values. Okay, so here it is going to return list of values, or sorry, so here it is going to return true or false, right? Okay, so here I'm just going to return list of values, so that I'm just going to use array list name, that is list. Okay, so and we need to surround this return type string data type into list of string. Okay, done. Okay, so now you see here also we need to change the return type, that is list of string. Now we need to import this list. We need to import from the java.util. Okay, so now I'm just going to return the values. Now let's see how the flow will be work. Okay, so now I'm just to make a call to this particular method. I'm just going to make a call in the URL endpoint, that is localhost colon 8080 demo. So we need to make a call to this particular method, so that demo slash add students, and I'm going to pass some values. So this value will be read by this particular method by using which annotation? Path variable annotation. Okay, so this variable name should be matched with this variable name which we declare on here. Now we are going to read the values from the URL. That value we need to pass to the services class, so that we are going to call the services method, so which is present on the sample services. So in the sample services we are having the method name which is called as add student. Here we are going to pass the name. So now we are moving to this add students classes, add students method which is present on the sample services. Okay, so here you see in this sample services class, we declare one array list, that object is list. Okay, so here you see we're having the method add students. So what is the access specifier? It is a public. So it's going, what is the return type? It is list of string. Okay, so what is the method name? It is add students. Okay, so here we are going to declare one variable, that is a string n. So values which we pass from here is a name, date, a name, and then type is string, so that here also we need to create an method with argument will contains argument type as string and n. Okay, so now the name is going, name value is assigned to n. So then we are going to use list dot add, then we are going to pass the n value on here, so that the values which we pass from the controller to the services class is added to it. Finally we are returning list of values which is present on the array list. Okay, so now you see I'm just going to stop and rerun this program. Now you see it's running successfully. So for that, to executing the endpoint, so we need to know one more thing, that is postman. Postman. Okay, the postman is used to test your API endpoint in the developer side, that is backend developer side. Okay, so here you see this is a So here you see this is the basic things. Okay, so here you see you need to choose which uh, performance you need to do, whether you want to perform the get or post or put or patch or delete. Okay, so now you see we are going to first performing the post operations. Okay, so here we are going to give the URL endpoint. Okay, so what is the URL endpoint? Localhost colon 8080. Okay, so that should be followed by we need to make a call to this particular class. So that's slash demo slash, and then we need to make a call to this particular method. Okay, so that we are going to use add students. Okay, so here you see we are going to make a call through which mapping? Post mapping. So that we need to use post mapping. Post mapping for insertion, get mapping for retrieval, put mapping, put for updation, patch for partial updations, and delete for deleting the record. Now here you see we are using post mapping. Okay, so here we need to pass along with the student's name, we need to pass the record. Okay, so I'm just going to pass Vinod Kumar Silverson, and I'm going to send a request to this particular endpoint. Here you see it is returning the list of values which is present on the array list. I'm just going to add one more record, Ashok Kumar Silverson. Okay, so I'm just going to send the record. Now you see it's going to return list of data which is present on the array list. Here, this one is used to choose the operation, which operations you want to perform by clicking the drop down button. Here, it is used for giving the URL endpoint, and here is your this is for body. Okay, so it is going to return the result on here. Okay, so here this is returning the status of your request. So these are the other things we are going to see this or what is all about in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so now you see we are going to performing the get operations to retrieve all the values which is present on the array list. For that, I'm just going to write at get mapping. So here I'm just going to use the URL endpoint as view all, view all. Okay, so that should be followed by I'm writing one simple method. View all is nothing but it returning all the values which is present on the array list. Okay, so that I'm just going to use the public. So then list, then it's going to return list of string. Okay, so list of string get all students. Okay, so this is the method name. Okay, so get all students. Okay, now inside this, I'm not going to pass any argument because we are going to get all the students details. Okay, so now you see I'm just going to create a method from the controller itself. How I'm going to create means I'm just going to call the dependencies of the services class dot. I'm just going to give any name. Okay, so I'm just going to give get a student. Okay, so you can give students, get students. Okay, so once I'm giving like this, okay, even though we are not created this method, this IntelliJ will create a method for us. Okay, so for that I'm just going to click the bulk button. So I'm telling that create a method get students in which class? Sample services class. Okay, I'm just clicking this. Now you see we got the method, we got the method on which services class. Okay, so it automatically create a method for us. Okay, so now I'm just going to use the return statement. Okay, so and I'm going to return the array list object. Okay, so that is list. Okay, so now what we return on here means, okay, so we return one method which is used to return all the values which is present on the array list. Okay, for that I'm just going to annotate this method with at get mapping. So I'm going to call the URL endpoint which is view all. Here this method is going to be a public access specifier and it is going to return the list of string, and it is going to the method name is going to be get all students. When the call is initiated to this particular method, true demo slash view all is going to make a call to this particular method. Inside this method, we are going to call get students, which is present on the sample services. Let's see what code we return on the get students. So here, this get students is going to return list of string. Is going inside this, we are returning array list object. Okay, so it's going to return list of string which is present on this particular array list. So it will be returning and it will be back to here. So here this method is going to return list of string values which is present on the array list. Then we are going to display those informations on the body. I'm just going to stop and rerun once again. So because we are not storing the informations anywhere in the database, so we are storing only in the array list. Whenever we are going to stop and execute once again, so that whatever the values which we already added, that will be not there. Okay, so we need to add it once again. Okay, so now I'm just going to use same post mapping. I'm going to inserting the one user, that is Vinod Kumar, and another one is going to be Ashok Kumar. Okay, so now you see we having two records. Okay, so now we are going to make a call to this particular get mapping. Okay, so that is get mapping is present inside this particular classes. So that I'm just going to use the URL, that is demo slash. Okay, so demo slash, I'm going to call this particular method, so that view all. Okay, so slash view all. I'm just going to send the request. Okay, so it's telling that, so we are use the wrong request method. Okay, so we need to change it to get mapping. Okay, so why? Because this is annotated with at get mapping. I'm just going to send the request now. Now you see we got the record. Hope you understand how to use get mapping and post mapping in the Spring Boot. Let's see one more thing. How to retrieve the particular records. How to retrieve one particular records. Okay, so for that same thing, we need to use the get mapping for retrieving one particular record. So as you know, the array list is going to store the values in the index format. Okay, so first index is going to store uh, Vinod records, Vinod Kumar Silvarasan. Second index is going to store Ashok Kumar Silvarasan. As you know, array is going to start with the 0. So 0th location will find the Vinod Kumar Silvarasan, and first location will find Ashok Kumar Silvarasan. Okay, so I'm just going to use get mapping. Okay, so view student by ID. Okay, so now I'm just going to write a method. The method name is public, that is access specifier is public. In string is going to return only one data, so that I'm just going to use only the string get student by index. Okay, the method name you can give anything, so it is not a method, you can give any name. Okay, so here you see we are going to pass the index value. Okay, so that I'm just going to use flower bracket. Inside this, I'm just going to pass the index value in the URL endpoint. Okay, so now when we are going to make a call to this particular method, okay, so it's going to pass the values in index. Okay, so we need to read those values by using path variable. Okay, so int index. Okay, so now we need to pass these values to the services class where we are having the array list. Okay, so now we are going to make a call to this particular services class. So even though now we are not created any methods in the services class for performing this retrieval operations based on the index values. So I'm just going to create a method on here itself. So by calling this a services class dependency injection object sample services dot, I'm just going to type the method retrieve by index. Okay, so we are not created any method like this. Okay, so we need to pass this value also to the services class for retrieving the values which is present on one particular in the array list. Okay, so we need to create this method like this on the services class. So that I'm just clicking create a method retrieve by index in the services class. Okay, so it's get created. Now you see it's created the public access specifier and return type is string. So method name is retrieve by index is going to create an method with an argument. Okay, so now we need to read this. Now we need to read the values. Okay, so that I'm just going to create a return type. Sorry. So now we need to read the value. Okay, so for that I'm just going to use the list dot. Okay, so we having a method called get method. Okay, so here this get method is used to return the values which is present on the particular index location. Here you see we are going to pass the index value to this get method. It is going to return the values which is present on the particular method. Here you see it is going to return return the values which is present on the particular location. So that I'm just going to use the return statement on here. Okay, so now you see what we return on here means, so we are returning one method which is annotated with at get mapping. Here you see inside this I'm just going to use the URL view student by ID and I'm going to pass the values. Okay, so in case if you want to pass the values, you need to use the flower bracket. Okay, so to read the values which is present on the URL path, we need to use at path variable annotation. So we are going to use the same variable name which is given on here. Okay, so this value is going to be int value, so that I'm just going to use the int over here. So now we need to create a method in the services class to read the values on the particular index location, so that we are create a method on the services class. Okay, so here the retrieve by index method which we return on the services class, we are going to pass the index value on here. So this method is going to be get call. Here what we return on here. So the access specifier is public and return type is string. The method name is retrieved by students. Here we are going to pass the index value from the controller to this particular services class. So we are going to read the values by using list.get. We are going to pass the index value to this get method. This get method is going to return the values which is present on the particular specified locations. Okay, so once it is returning the values which is present on the particular locations, we are going to transfer the values to the controller. This controller is going to display the informations which is present on this particular index location. Hope you understand how to retrieve the values by index. Now I'm going to stop and rerun this program. As I already told that whenever you are going to rerun this program, the whatever the values which we already added, that will be get deleted. Okay, so we need to insert once again. Okay, so I'm just going to insert those information which we already added. Okay, okay. So now you see we added two information. Now we are going to call the particular method which is used to return the values which is present on the particular index location. To make a call to this particular method, we need to use the request mapping which is given on the controller. Okay, so demo is already there. Okay, so that should be followed by we need to make a call to this particular method. Okay, so this method is going to use this endpoint view by ID, and then we need to pass the index value as an argument. Okay, as I already told that zeroth location store Vinod Kumar Silverson and first location store Ashok Kumar Silverson. I'm just going to pass zeroth location and send request now. Okay, so here the same mistake which I already done previously. Okay, so we need to choose proper request method. Okay, so here we are using get mapping, right? Okay, so that we need to use a get on here and send the request now. Now you see the values present on the zeroth location is Vinod Kumar Silverson and the values present on the first index location is Ashok Kumar Silverson. Hope you understand how to perform this post get. Now, uh, we are going to see one more operation, that is delete operation. Hmm, sorry. So we need to use at delete mapping. Here inside this, I'm just going to use delete all. Okay, so delete. Okay, so that should be followed by, I'm just going to use delete all record. Okay, so I'm just going to delete all the record. Public, and it is going to return, so void, or else I'm just going to return list of string. Okay, so then I'm going to use method name as delete by delete all. I'm just going to delete all the record which is present on the array list. Okay. So here I'm just going to call the method which is present on the services class. As of now, we are not created any method to perform the delete operation. So I'm just going to use sample services dot. So I'm not created any method, so that I'm just going to create a method signature which I require, delete all method. Okay, we can give any name. Okay, so delete all method. As of now, we are not created any methods Okay, so that I'm just going to use IntelliJ to create a method in the services class. Okay, so now you see this IntelliJ is created method for us in the services class. Once this method is going to be get called, we are going to call list or array list object list dot remove method. Okay, so here you see in case if you want to remove all, you can use a remove all method, or else in case if you want to remove based on the index location, you can use a remove method. I'm just going to use remove all method. Okay, so it's going to remove all the values which is present on the array list. Okay, so then I'm going to return values. I'm just going to use a return. I'm just going to return list. Okay, so here inside this, we need to pass the values. Okay, so that is, it's here you see, is going to uh, remove the values. Okay, so it is going to return the values. Is it true or false? Okay, so here I'm just going to hold some boolean value. Okay, so boolean value yes equal to remove all. Okay, so then here I'm just going to pass the array list object. Mm, oh, sorry, I used the wrong syntax. Equal to list. Okay, so done. Okay, so this method is going to remove the values which is present on the array list, is going to return store the values whether it is removed or not on the boolean. It is going to return the boolean values only. Okay, so it's going to store it on as variable, and in case if you want to check whether the remove is done successfully or not, you can check with this variable. Okay, so if yes, then it is removed successfully, or else so it is not get removed. Okay, so now we return the delete mapping also. Okay, so I'm just going to stop and rerun once again. Okay, so as I already told that each time when we are going to rerun this application, so the whatever the values which is present, it's get removed. Okay, so I'm just going to perform the insert operation once again. Uh, okay, so I'm just performing insert operation. Now you see the array list is holding two information. Now I'm just going to remove all the information. To make a call to this particular method, we need to use delete all. Okay, so which is present inside this particular controller demo slash delete all. Okay, so demo slash delete all. Okay, so now which request method? It is a delete, right? Okay, so here we need to use delete. Okay, so I'm just going to send the request. Here you see now all the values which is present on the array list is get removed. Okay, so in case if you're having doubts, we can use this view method. This view method is used to return all the values which is present on the particular array list. Okay, so I'm just going to use the URL to check whether the deletion is done successfully or not by sending this request. Yes, we got null record. Okay, so all the data is get removed. Okay, so this is all about the basics of Spring Boot. In next videos, we are going to discuss about how to perform the CRUD operations on the entity classes. By using the entity classes, we are going to perform the CRUD operations. Hope you like this video. In case if you like this video, please click the subscribe and bell button. Share this video with your friends. Thank you very much.